It's Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank. It's AM 1160 WCCS 101.1 FM. Here's a guy that hasn't been busy lately. He's Indiana County District Attorney Pat Dougherty joining us this morning.
Good morning, Todd.
Good morning. There are a number of different events coming up to commemorate this or that in this month of April, and we note the ribbons, and we had last week the domestic assault or domestic violence task force in here.
Yes.
April is a month in which we call attention to a couple of different issues and problems.
Yeah, actually, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month as well as Child Abuse Awareness Month. Mm-hmm. If anybody's driven by the courthouse, they may have seen the pinwheel garden that is there. The pinwheels represent hope and, people in our community stepping up and saying, we are opposed to child abuse. So the Care Center of Indiana put that together, and it was a nice event. Unfortunately, it rained a lot Friday, but there were still a lot of people that turned out. Also on the streets, not only here in Indiana, but in all the other municipalities throughout the county, you'll notice the ribbons on the posts and on the parking meter posts. They are signifying Sexual Assault Awareness Month. The Alice Paul House put those out. So we're real excited. We have a lot of stuff going on, and these are things to bring awareness to the community of the problems that we have. It's certainly not an exciting topic. But we have an engaged group of people, as you mentioned. The Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Task Force was in. Talk about a motivated group of volunteers that commit themselves to working very hard in this county.
Yeah. And Take Back the Night is next week.
Absolutely. Take Back the Night is April 12th at the Delaney Courtyard at IUP. I will be a speaker there. If you have never attended that event, I highly encourage it. It's very powerful. You'll have people that have been victimized who share their stories. It's very, very moving. As my good friend Justin Shaw of the Indiana Borough Police says, he had never gone to that until a few years ago. He and his wife went, and they haven't missed since because they were just so moved by the courage that people show sharing their stories. So it is truly a moving event and a meaningful event that IUP puts a lot of work in planning. So if people have an opportunity, it's open to the public. We want that to be a community event. Yeah. And it's not that long of a walk. They do a little walk, and it's neat to see the students. They have some chants and some cheers, trying to inform the students about, what the message is.
Yeah, and then afterwards they gather. Is it at the hub that they gather?
Yeah, it's at the hub, and at that location they'll have some speakers, and then they'll invite any victims or folks that want to come up and share their stories. And it's really interesting because you'll have people come up and read poems that they've written, sing songs that they've written, or just talk and tell their story of, how they've been impacted by this issue. Yeah, so it's really moving.
One of the interesting things about that whole thing and the way that they organize it is events of that nature tend to encourage others who have also been victimized to give voice to their situation, and it opens the eyes of people to what domestic violence is and what sexual assault is. Absolutely. And people can then see things happening and recognize situations and not turn their back.
Yeah, and it shows people they're not alone. Yeah. And there's a lot of people out there that think, oh my goodness, this has only happened to me. When this happens every day in not only our little community, but also in communities all across this country. So to give that a voice is really, really moving and powerful. Yeah.
One of the other issues happening, and this is actually coming up, I believe, next month, senior citizens are often targeted by scammers and are susceptible.
Right.
It's very, very obvious that that's who they're after because those are the people who are most vulnerable.
Sure. We hear it on the news every night. I saw a story on the national news about the kidnapping. They called grandparents and said, Grandma, I've been kidnapped. And, and they tell you, don't call anyone. Well, so these people go and took $10,000 out of their bank and deposited it at Western Union stores over the course of a couple 100 miles following the instructions because they were feared they wouldn't to help their grandchild. These things happen a lot. You have to ask the right questions. Mm-hmm. I think people are getting a little more savvy with this, but the reality of it is we have to, ask the right questions. So
you have an event coming up, or there is an event, I guess I should put it better.
Yes.
Next month.
Yes. On May 9th at the Kowalczyk Center, we will have our 4th annual Scam Jam. This is where the last couple of years we've had in excess of 400 people attend this event. It's a very popular event. There's free breakfast, free lunch included. It's from 10 to 12. Mm-hmm. We partnered with Aging Services to do this. My office, as well as Aging Services and Holsinger, Clark, and Armstrong, they're one of the sponsors. Indiana First Bank is one of the sponsors at this point. So we are looking for individuals that would like to help sponsor the event. But also, this is an opportunity for seniors to get educated. Yeah. We have people come in and talk about everything from wills and estates and that type of planning to scams. We're going to have someone from the U.S. Postal Service who's going to talk about mail scams and those type of things. So it's a very informative day. We've had great feedback. If anyone is interested in attending that, we ask them to make a reservation by calling Aging Services. That number is 724-349-4500. It is absolutely free to attend.
Okay, very good. And folks, do take advantage of that. I would imagine younger family members would be interested in taking their parents, grandparents to an event such as that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something for everyone. There's something for the caregivers. There's something for the older adults. We really want it to be an informative session. We change the schedule every year so we aren't repeating the same old thing, so people can get new and information. And that's the biggest thing we want, is to make sure that people are educated. He is
Indiana County District Attorney Pat Dougherty, joining us briefly here this morning as the Osgood file is coming up in about, let's call it 6 minutes or so. You have been involved in several high-profile investigations and cases that will be making their way through the courts. Of course, the 2 homicides that happened on IUPattys weekend. Any updates on those investigations? Are you learning new things?
Yeah, the investigations are ongoing. Obviously, we're doing our work with the forensic labs and things of that nature at this point. There's not a whole lot more I can share at this point than what's already been released. But the cases are making progress, and the detectives at Indiana Borough are working very diligently to make sure that we cross all of our T's and dot all of our I's, as they always do, because they are professionals and they do a great job. It's a situation that's unfortunate, but we deal with it. Yeah. And we work and do what we have to do through the system.
There has been call upon call for action.
Yes.
Indiana Borough Council addressing it just the other night.
Yes.
And it's good to see that people recognize where there is a problem in any aspect of society, sure, and try to find solutions that are going to be positive.
Well, I've talked to several people as well throughout the county, and the issue's not as black and white as, if it were an event at one location, then it's easy to shut down. Mm-hmm. Anybody that has followed this or tracked this knows this is student-generated, kind of a grassroots type of situation. Yeah. And every year it's somewhere different. A couple years ago it was up at Grandview Avenue. This year it was a lot at 701 Philadelphia Street, mm-hmm, at the apartment complex there. House parties. We are using all of the resources that we have available to try to keep the peace. Yeah. Is it perfect? No. But when you have in excess of 10 or 20,000 people in our community with limited police resources, that's about what we can do, is try to keep the peace. Some years it works. Some years, and this year obviously it didn't. Yeah. We need to examine and look, is what we're doing working? We've done a great job, I think, of engaging landlords and property owners, mm-hmm, to get them engaged in the process so that these things don't happen in their rentals. and so that the students are educated. I truly believe IUP has tried to educate their students as to the ramifications. But you got to remember, we're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds. If they always made great decisions, they wouldn't be in the situation they're in.
Yeah. A couple of quick points that folks wanted me to ask you the next
Sure.
time I saw you. One of them was, when you have events such as that and extra police protection is brought in, where does the money come that pays for all of that extra work?
Well, the majority of the extra police are the state police. And, the state, obviously, through the tax dollars, every police agency is funded through tax dollars, whether it's Indiana Borough, whether it's state police, whether it's Homer City Borough that assists, Blairsville, the sheriff's department, whichever entity helps. Obviously, at the end of the day, it's tax dollars paying for that. I know Indiana Borough, they swap and help other municipalities when they have events. So, it is a true team effort that, somebody had mentioned in one of the articles, well, we can't wait until January of 2018 to plan this. Well, believe me, we don't. It's a year-round process. Law enforcement, emergency management, they all collaborate, because not only does it put a strain on the police, but let's talk about Citizens Ambulance for a minute.
Oh, yeah.
The strain that it puts on their crews. And, you have 2 shootings within 46 minutes of each other. That's a lot of manpower. It's a lot of resources that are also being diverted from the system for your normal, everyday, ordinary calls that happen. So in the emergency room at IRMC, they do a great job, but they're part of the planning process.
Yeah.
And, it is a true community team effort. Believe me, nobody wants this event to happen. This isn't something that, we go around and want to promote our community with this event. This is something that has kind of taken hold, over the past few years. And I wish I could pinpoint one reason or one area that we could say, okay, we're going to do this. I've had close the bars. Penn State closed the bars. Sure they did. And each of those bars got paid upwards of $10,000 each. IUP doesn't have that kind of endowment or that kind of resource to pull that off.
And as was pointed out, these weren't really bar events.
They weren't.
These were private parties and private homes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so
the other question that people had was about the pace of the legal system, which is really not under your control or really under the court's control either. The law demands that certain amounts of time and certain procedures be followed.
Sure. I mean, it's all laid out, and, to do a proper job, whether it's a prosecution or a defense, that it takes some time. It's not, I wish we lived in the world of NCIS and Law and Order where everything happened, the crime and the analysis and everything happened in an hour. That's not realistic. Crime labs, people don't understand. When you send something to the crime lab, you're talking about a 4 to 6 month turnaround.
Yeah.
Just to get that evidence back. So, there's a lot of moving parts to the system, and, defendants have certain rights, and that makes it challenging. But I always tell people, look, the Constitution was created for a reason, and we must follow the Constitution. If we don't, then are we any better than a lot of other countries in the world?
Yeah.
We got to ensure fairness.
You consider the idea of the rush to judgment versus the idea of getting it right.
Well, as people sometimes forget, in this country, you're innocent until proven guilty. And, people only remember that when it applies to them a lot of times, when they're the ones being accused.
All right. Just a moment left with Indiana County District Attorney Pat Dougherty. Wanted to ask you about the battle against opioids.
Yes.
You have been involved in that. State police, borough police from all across the region. There is a Indiana County Drug Task Force.
Yes.
And I know that you go out and you do educational events. Are there any plans right now for upcoming events?
Nothing as far as a wide community base. Well, that's not true. We have something in May. I believe it's May 26th, but I don't want to say that date without being exact. Out in Marion Center at the Presbyterian Church. We're going to have a community town hall meeting there in late May. They were gracious enough to have us in. Also, the Western region, the U.S. Attorney and Attorney General Josh Shapiro will be at the Kowalczyk Center in April, and I don't remember the date off the top of my head. I'd have to look at my schedule. But they're coming to Indiana to talk about this. It's May 23rd is the date for that event. So I'm sorry. I'm confusing my dates. May 23rd for Marion Center.
Okay.
And April 26th is when the U.S. Attorney and the Attorney General will be at the Kowalczyk Center talking about the opioid epidemic and how it's affected all of southwest Pennsylvania.
Very good. Well, that'll be a big, big event. I want to thank you for coming across the street
Thanks.
in the rain today.
It's always good to see you. Thanks, Todd.
He is Indiana County District Attorney Pat Dougherty with us here this morning on Indiana in the Morning.